Israeli visa ban. Now, I mentioned at the top of the program, you've got to ask who's making these decisions. Tony Burke, the Minister for Home Affairs, he's revoked the visa of the Israeli member of the Knesset, Simcha Rothman. He was on in an excellent interview with Shari Markson last night. Now, the department says this bloke might risk the good order of the Australian community. What he's done is come out and said Hamas has to be destroyed. Now, who would argue with that? He was invited to Australia by the Australian Jewish Association. Its Chief Executive, Robert Gregory, joins me now. Good to see you again, Robert. I've read now what the Australian got their hands on today, these papers that show the reason. It makes the ban even worse, doesn't it?
100%. I was shocked to read it. One of the reasons, as you said, is that he has called for the elimination of Hamas. Now, I think if anyone in Home Affairs has an issue with someone calling for the elimination of a terrorist group, they shouldn't be working in Home Affairs. It's crazy.
Well, this comes, and I made the point at the top of the program. I mean, I don't recall, and you'd be better to judge this than me. I don't recall Australian-Israeli relations, and you've just come back from there, ever to be at such a low level.
You're correct, and I've worked in this line of work for a while. I've never seen anything like it. I've never heard of anything like it. His visa, he'd applied for a visa 5 weeks ago. It had been approved 10 days ago. I'm right now in Melbourne. I flew down to Melbourne to greet him because a few hours before he was supposed to board the plane is when he got the notice that his visa had been cancelled. So if the government had any issue, if it had any issue with his comments, it had 5 weeks to look into it. It could have asked him to clarify. I think this was intentional. I think this may be a manufactured crisis, less to do with who the politician is and more to do with the Albanese government wanting to show that it's against Israel, that it's pleasing some of the protests we've seen, and that it's created this crisis. And now we've seen, I mean, Israel obviously had to retaliate, and now several Australian diplomats have lost their visas, and potentially this could spiral even more. Maybe the Trump administration will get involved. It's terrible.
Who was Mr. Rothman going to meet and talk to?
So we prepared a whole schedule for Mr. Rothman. The purpose of his visit was to meet with some of the victims of anti-Semitic attacks. He was going to tour the Adas Israel synagogue that was firebombed. These issues have made big news in Israel when they happen, so there's concern in the Israeli public and the Israeli government. He was going to address synagogues in Sydney and Melbourne, speak to school students, Jewish schools, and then a series of private meetings with different Jewish and other leaders. And we'd gone to all this effort, set up an entire program for him. So of course we were very shocked with the cancellation. It just completely came out of the blue. We never would have expected, you know, he's not some nobody. He has a senior role in the Israeli government. He's chair of a very powerful committee in the Netanyahu government. And this is just not how you do diplomacy. It's diplomacy for amateurs, what we're seeing from the Albanese government.
Tony Burke's office and department seems to be trying to paint in or portray him as some sort of nasty right-wing radical who has no place coming to Australia, and if he did, he would foment nervousness and disruption of the Muslim community. From what I've seen and read about him, he couldn't be further from the truth. I don't get where they get that characterisation of this man.
Look, he's a mild-mannered guy. That's how he's known. His talks were focused on anti-Semitism, internal Jewish community events, so they weren't connected to the Middle East conflict. He's not known to be particularly extremist. And in the document from Home Affairs where they refused his visa, the reasons are not for anything particularly extremist. I would think almost all Australians would hopefully agree that the Hamas terrorist organization needs to be eliminated. Other issues they took issue with was his judicial reform policies in Israel, which I don't think any Australians care about, let alone refusing someone a visa over their law policies in Israel. I mean, we just wouldn't see this. You'd never see the government treat a Chinese politician this way. You wouldn't. The Prime Minister just got off the phone a few days ago from Mahmoud Abbas, who's who's the head of the Palestinian Authority. He's a Holocaust denier. He wrote his thesis in that, and he's also, the Palestinian Authority actually funds terrorism and gives money to families of terrorists. And the Prime Minister has no issue with these sort of people. So why is he taking issue with a democratic, what was once a close ally of Australia?
Have you checked, Robert, how this has been reported back in Israel, this denial of this visa?
So this has made big news in Israel. I've done several interviews with Israeli media on Israeli TV. Israelis are outraged. I think, as we said, Israelis, they love Australia and they love Australians, but they're starting to know Australia because of some of the anti-Semitic attacks that have been broadcast around the world. And now this latest incident certainly doesn't help. I mean, Simcha Rothman he visits Europe, he visits the United States, he's never had any issues there. So this is certainly very out of the ordinary. And a range of Israeli ministers have issued public statements on it, from the foreign minister down. So Israelis know about it, they're concerned, they're worried about what happened to these once close ties between two friendly nations, and how all of a sudden under the Albanese government it's been completely destroyed.
Yeah, you're right. You're not exaggerating there. That's absolutely correct. Robert, thank you very much. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Thanks a lot.